So, Weight Latin 1 students, welcome back. Thank you guys for joining me today. We are starting chapter 17. It's pretty exciting because we only have 2 weeks left in the school year. It's crazy how fast things have been going this last quarter since we've been doing online schooling, but we are in the final chapter today. So today I'm going to take you through the chapter 17 vocab. We'll work on it this week, and the next week we will have our last quiz of the year. And remember, there are no finals this year as there normally are, so next Friday will be your last assignment. That last week, it is technically a week of school, but they've said not to give any tests or new lessons or anything like that. So we might have a short survey or something to do, but there won't be any big things that last week of school that we have to do. Okay. So today I wanted to take you through the chapter 17 vocabulary, and then tomorrow I'll type at the chapter. The last few chapters we've been dealing with the third declension, which is very crucial, but this chapter we're dealing with verbs. So remember your third declension words, your I stem, your third declension endings. That's still crucial, but I'm glad we're going to end the year on verbs because verbs are very important also. These verbs are called second conjugation verbs. I'll take you through the chapter itself tomorrow, but today I just want to take you through the vocabulary. I have already shared this set with you on Quizlets. You can begin practicing now if you'd like to. It's not a huge vocab chapter, but there are some important words. These are all verbs, this chapter. And these verbs are second conjugation. And just to remind you, I'm going to go over this tomorrow more, but a conjugation is a group of verbs that all conjugate the same way with the same endings and the same processes and stuff. So you'll notice that all these verbs have something similar. Notice the infinitive here, which is the second principal part. Habeda, this one, they all have an E in that second principal part of the infinitive. You should remember that the first conjugation, there was always an A in the infinitive, amare, or laudare, or pugnare, right? So that's how you can tell the first and second conjugation apart is by the infinitive, but I'll go into that more tomorrow. As we learn the vocabulary, I'm going to tell you a few derivatives for each word. You could be thinking of a derivative yourself, and you want to make sure you get these into your vocab part of your binder. And of course, these will be on your next quiz. It's your last vocab of the year here. So you want to make sure you learn it very well. I have a lot of you back next year for Latin too. And of course, we'll pick up here and go forward. So let's start with the first word here, which is habeo, habere, habewi, habetum. That is how you say it. You always do the 4 principal parts, right? So habeo, habere, habewi, habetum. We've already dealt with most of the principal parts. Those are because you use those to make stems to conjugate the verb from, but I'll remind you more about that tomorrow. Habeo means to have or to hold, to have or to hold. So some derivatives here would be a habit, something you hold on to and you do a lot is a habit. Habitual would be another derivative there. If you habitually do something, it means you kind of repeatedly do it or you tend to do it a lot, right? Inhibit would be another derivative, to hold something in. Inhibit is a good derivative there of habeo. Looking at the next one is maneo. You see right here, maneo, manere, mansi, mansum. Notice how these verbs don't all follow the same pattern. First conjugation, there was a pretty clear pattern. There is kind of here too, but there's some more variability. So look how this one has an S, mansi, whereas this one was a U. That's kind of important. You can't just assume the principal parts like you could mostly in the first conjugation. So this verb maneo means to stay or to remain. So what are some derivatives here for maneo, English words that come from this? Well, remain is a derivative. That's a good one here. Mansion is a derivative, large house. Manor is a derivative, not manor in the sense of M-A-N-O-R. Manor means like a large country home or something. Another derivative would be remnant. A remnant of something means like a leftover part of it. The remnants of something means just the leftover bits. So a lot of good derivatives there. All these probably have even more you can think of, but I just want to give you a few for each word. Now the next word you might confuse with maneo, so be very careful because they look kind of similar. Maneo versus moneo. So you got to watch your pronunciation here. Moneo, monere, monoi, monitum means to warn, to advise, or to inform. So some words here that you might use would be admonish. I don't know if you've heard that word, but admonish means you got to warn someone, a light warning. It's not a super serious thing, but just means like, hey, don't do that again. Admonish, right? Monitor would be another derivative here. If you monitor someone, are both good derivatives. And then the third one kind of looks also similar. So you got to keep these M1s all separate from each other. Moeo, moere, mowi, motum is the next one. It means to move. And so from moeo, we get words like movement would come from this. Look at this fourth mental part. We would get words from this like maybe motion or motor, like in a car or some sort of engine. So um, those would all be derivatives of moeo. So these three verbs pretty common, but they kind of sound similar as you say them. So make sure you keep them very separate in your mind and study those well. The next one is sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessum. Again, notice how there's kind of different patterns here. This one has a T in the fourth, this one has an S. You can't just assume the principal parts. That's really important. So sedeo means to sit, to sit. So if you're training your dog, you can use this. Feel free to use that. You can tell him sede, which means sit. That's the imperative, by the way. What are some derivatives of sedeo? Well, if you give someone a medicine that's kind of meant to calm them down, maybe so they can rest, it's called a sedative, right? So they're not hyper and up, sedative. Sedate would be like a patient in the hospital. They sedate them to calm them down for surgery or something. Session would be another derivative here. Session, like a session of a conference or a meeting you go to or something. And another would be sedentary. If something is sedentary or someone is sedentary, they're not moving around a lot. It means they're kind of mostly staying in one place, not a lot of movement, sedentary. So that's a lot of good derivatives there. The next one is teneo, tenere, tenui, tentum, and it means to hold. Now, habeo also meant to hold, but teneo means hold more literally or physically. So if I'm holding this pencil in my hand or something, that would be teneo more likely. Habeo can mean to have with more intangible things. So like I have an idea, or, I hold this near to my heart, so things like that. Whereas teneo is literally more literally type of holding things. So what are some derivatives of teneo, to hold? Well, this would be anything with tain in it. So like retain, if you hold something back, you retain it. Contain, like container, would come from this. We have retain, we have obtain. If you obtain something, those are all derivatives. A lot of derivatives here from teneo. Tenant would be another one. A tenant of like a religion or philosophy means the things that they hold close, kind of their most important teachings and things like that. It's called a tenant. The next one is temeo, temere, timui blank, and this means to fear or to be afraid. And notice how I said blank. There is no fourth mental part for temeo. Occasionally there's a verb that doesn't have a fourth mental part, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the chapter, but it basically means there's some of its forms are lacking. But for now, make sure you say blank, because if you just don't say it, you might not remember that it doesn't have a fourth principal part. You might just make a principal part up, right? So there isn't one. You can't just make one up there. So think of fear, to be afraid. Any good derivatives here? Well, what if you're just a little afraid of something? Timid is a good word here. Timid means you're a little afraid of something. Timid is probably the best word here. Timidity is a noun that means kind of a slight fear. You don't hear that quite as much, but the word timid is pretty common. The next one's probably the most common verb of the chapter, video, videre, vidi, visum, and it means to see. It's a very common verb. Again, look at the principal parts. They're not always predictable. Video, videre, vidi, visum, with the S. So some derivatives here would be like video would, of course, be a derivative here. Visual would be a derivative. Vision would be another one here. Things all have to do with seeing, with sight. A lot of those would come from this, right? So lots of important vocab here. Again, not a huge amount. There's only eight verbs, but each one of them has principal parts to learn, and we're going to use these a lot. Once I get to the chapter tomorrow, we're going to, remind ourselves how to do the different tenses, all 6 tenses. So this will be a good review chapter on verbs to round the year up, and there will be a few new things. This last thing here, castra moeda, you're probably wondering about that. It's not a new vocab word per se, but it's something called an idiom that I'll explain tomorrow. So I don't want to go into it right now, but just know that's coming. It's called an idiom, and I will tell you about that very soon. Okay. So today is a vocab day to study this vocabulary, to get it into your binder, to start learning it, learn it nice and early this chapter. And then tomorrow I will come back and give you the notes for chapter 17, which will be our final chapter. If you guys need anything, make sure to pop into my office hours or send me a message, and I'll be right there to help you. Okay. Hope you guys are doing very well, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Walete.